Around touristy places in Paris, like Montmartre, the Louvre, or here the Eiffel Tower, it's very easy to fall into a tourist trap. You've had a great day exploring Paris, you're starting to feel a bit tired, and now you're looking for a place to sit down, maybe for a drink or something to eat. And that's exactly when you fall into the trap.
Disgusting food.
Overpriced.
Completely dishonest.
A disgrace.
Tourist trap.
Never again.
Terrible choice.
Negative stars.
Rip-off cafe.
These are real reviews from restaurants right here. So in this video, I'll show you exactly how to spot them and how to choose a good restaurant instead. Sometimes just 50 meters away. The first time you might be dealing with a tourist trap is someone trying to pull you into the restaurant. In some very touristy areas, you'll see waiters or sometimes dedicated people standing outside like here, trying to convince you to sit down, showing you the menu, calling you over, sometimes insisting a bit. In Paris, good restaurants simply don't need to do that. There can be a few exceptions, but as a general rule, it's not a great sign. So if someone is actively trying to bring you in, that should immediately make you a bit cautious. The second thing you should always do is look at the menu outside. In Paris, restaurants are required to display their menu and prices. So take a moment and really look at it. It will help you notice things like this: a small bottle of water at the ridiculously expensive price of €9. Is it clear? Does it feel coherent? Does it look like real chef dishes or something very generic? If everything looks a bit too tourist-oriented, or if nothing really stands out, that's already a warning sign. And once you start looking more closely, when details become very important. Apart from large brasseries, which serve a lot of people and have big kitchen teams, if a restaurant offers a very long menu with dozens of dishes, that's usually not a great sign. Because you simply can't prepare everything fresh, and quality becomes inconsistent. There's a great chance the food is not made in-house. In France, a shorter menu usually means fresher ingredients, better execution, and more consistency. Now, a quick word about online reviews, TripAdvisor, Google Maps. They can be useful, but they should always be taken with a grain of salt. In fact, the positive and negative review I just showed you from TripAdvisor and Google Maps are all about the same restaurant. And this restaurant is rated 4.1 on Google and an appalling 1.4 on TripAdvisor. Strange, isn't it? Well, yes, unfortunately, online reviews can sometimes be manipulated, even though platforms like TripAdvisor and Google are constantly working to limit that. So, reviews can help, but they should never be your only decision tool. That said, as a seasoned traveler, there's one simple rule I personally follow. If a restaurant is rated below 3 on both platforms, that's usually a clear warning sign. Location also plays a big role. Restaurants right next to major landmarks or on the path between this landmark and the nearest metro station often rely on one-time visitors. That doesn't mean they're all bad, but expectations should be lower. Very often, walking just 1 or 2 streets away can make a huge difference. One of the simplest and most effective things you can do is look at who's eating there. Is it mostly tourists or a mix, including locals? If locals are eating there, that's usually a very good sign. Now here's one of the best signs you can look for. A chalkboard, often called l'ardoise, where you will find the plat du jour. Usually, these are fresh seasonal dishes, often based on what the chef has found at the market, or at Rungis, which is the huge wholesale food market just outside Paris, where he went early in the morning. In other words, the best products of the moment. So if you see a chalkboard, take a closer look. And by the way, some people will tell you that you should avoid restaurants with an English menu. Well, Paris is one of the most visited cities in the world, and has been for a long time. So naturally, restaurants have adapted, and today most of them offer an English menu, even outside touristy areas. Sometimes it's just an English translation below the French dish, and sometimes it's a completely separate menu. But in both cases, that's perfectly normal. What matters is not the language of the menu, it's what's on the plate. But if you find a restaurant that offers menus in many different other languages, then it's worth being a bit more cautious. If a restaurant offers French food, Italian food, burgers, and sushi, that's usually not a good sign. Good restaurants will focus on what they do best, not on dishes from all around the world. Let's talk about prices, because this is another important signal. Of course, in very touristy areas, you shouldn't expect cheap prices. But sometimes, prices are simply way too high for what you get. And in some places, you may come across practices that are simply not acceptable. For example, you might be told that tap water is not available. Well, it legally is. They have to serve you free tap water. It's the law. You might also feel some pressure to tip, even though service is already included in France, as it is legally written on the bill. Or you might be served a larger and way more expensive drink when you simply asked for a coffee or a Coke. So in these areas, always take a moment to check prices carefully and don't hesitate to ask if something is not clear. And finally, trust your instinct. If something feels too pushy, too generic, or too rushed, it probably is. In Paris, a good restaurant usually feels relaxed, confident, and focused on the food. So just remember a few things. Be careful with people trying to pull you in. Check for a short and logical menu. And look for simple, fresh dishes. You're already setting yourself up for a much better meal in Paris. And as we say in French, you won't be taken for a pigeon.